Welcome back. Today we are going to tackle one of the most argued over, most confusing, and honestly, most game-changing calls in all of college basketball: continuous motion. It's that one rule that can flip a simple foul into a game-winning three-point play, and it all happens in the blink of an eye.
So picture this. The clock is screaming down. 3, 2, 1. Your team's star player drives the lane, goes up for what could be the game-winning layup right as the buzzer sounds. And then you hear it, a whistle, a foul on the defender. The ball drops through the net. The entire stadium, thousands of people, just holds its breath. Does the basket count or not? Well, it all comes down to this one single concept.
And this image, well, it really gets right to the heart of the whole thing. A foul during a shot can change absolutely everything, which leads to two massive questions that every ref has to answer in a split second. Was the player actually shooting when the foul happened? And does that basket count? The answer is buried in the rule book, and today we're going to decode it together.
Okay, let's dive right in. The entire call, everything we've been talking about, hinges on this principle of continuous motion. This is the rule that officials use to figure out if a player's shot is a real legitimate continuation of a play that got interrupted by a foul.
So what does the official NCAA rulebook actually say? Well, Rule 4-8 defines it like this: continuous motion begins when the normal throwing movement starts a try and ends when the ball is clearly in flight. Now that sounds pretty simple, right? But the key, the part that causes all the arguments on the court and in the stands, is that little phrase, normal throwing movement. What does that even mean?
And thankfully, Rule 5.1.1.10 gives us a little more to work with. It says, the try starts when the player begins the motion that normally precedes the release of the ball. You can think of this as the point of no return. Once this specific motion starts, if a defender fouls them, the offensive player gets to finish their shot. But that just leads to the next big question. When does that motion officially start?
To really get when the shooting motion starts, you first have to understand when it hasn't started yet. And the dividing line, the single most important factor for the officials, it's all about the dribble.
So let's just ask the question straight up then. You see a player driving, you see them gather the ball, you see them go up for the shot. When, in that whole sequence, does the rulebook say the act of shooting has actually begun?
And here it is. This is the crucial point that so many fans and even some announcers get wrong. According to the NCAA's own approved rulings, the shooting motion can't begin until the player has ended their dribble. So any foul that happens while the ball is still being bounced, even on that last bounce as they're picking it up, is just a common foul, no shot. The act of shooting starts the moment after they've picked up the ball. So what does a perfect, legal, continuous motion play look like? Let's walk through the whole sequence. 1. The player ends their dribble. 2. They start that upward shooting motion towards the basket. 3. Right then the foul happens. Now here's the cool part. The rule allows them to complete their current step or pivot. So 4. They take that one step. 5. They release the ball. And if it goes in. 6. The basket counts. That is your textbook and one opportunity right there.
But of course, it's never quite that simple in a real game, is it? There's a really fine line between a legal continuation and an illegal one, and it all comes down to what happens right after the foul. This is where all the tricky exceptions come into play and why these calls can get so tough.
This chart breaks down two specific casebook rulings that really show the difference perfectly. Okay, look on the left. In approved ruling 510, the player gets fouled as they gather the ball and start their shot. It's all one fluid motion, a clear continuation. The basket counts. But now look at the right, at ruling 512. In this case, the player is fouled, comes to a full stop, and then decides to heave a shot up. The rulebook says that's a new act, totally separate from the drive. And in that situation, the basket is waved off. It's just a common foul.
And that brings us to another huge exception. What if the player takes too many steps after they get fouled? Well, approved ruling 513 is crystal clear. If a player ends their dribble, gets fouled, and then takes 2 steps, they've just broken the whole continuous motion. That's a travel. So even though they got fouled, the shooting part of the play is wiped out. It goes back to being just a common foul on the floor.
Okay, so let's go all the way back to our opening scene. The buzzer's going off, the ball's in the air, the whistle has blown. How in the world does a referee put all these little pieces together in a fraction of a second to make the right call?
Well, they run through a mental checklist. And now this is your checklist too. First, and this is the big one, did the foul happen after the dribble ended? If not, case closed. Second, had the player started that upward shooting motion? Third, did they only take that one allowed continuation step or pivot? And finally, was the shot released as part of that single fluid motion?
If the answer is a clear and immediate yes to all 4 of those questions, then the call is actually simple, and it's the right one. The basket counts, and that player is heading to the free throw line with a chance to win the game. So there you have it. Continuous motion isn't just some random judgment call after all. It's a clear sequence of events with a definite start and a definite finish. And it's all governed by the dribble, the steps, and the shot itself. Now that you know the rules from the inside out, you can make the call right from your own couch, and I guarantee you will never look at a last-second foul the same way again.